People have a brief idea of what anxiety is, what does it feel like, how do you go about it. If you Google it, if you YouTube it, you see there are people putting up videos saying 5 solutions, do this, you'll be good. Beyond that, Miriam, what is it that people need to know about anxiety and how can they feel better?
Sure. Beyond that, meaning everyone, and I think this was something that Abhijit mentioned as a general rule as well in in your last session with him, that what works for me may not work for you, right? So I think that's the starting step, that each one needing to identify what is causing their anxiety. Like I said earlier about the cognitive distortions, identify what is happening here. And this is typically difficult to do just at the thought level. So writing down is extremely important. Write down your exact thoughts that you had before you started feeling the anxiety symptoms. And then trying to identify to see, is this all or nothing thinking? Am I overgeneralizing? So by overgeneralizing, that means that I had this one bad incident or maybe 2 or 3 with this particular person or in this particular situation, and then saying all people of this type or this particular. So I had a bad example, say with an executive who's got an MBA, and I say all MBA people are terrible, so that's an overgeneralizing. So identifying really what is my cognitive distortion here that is causing me anxiety. And then trying to see what, like I said, what matters to you and why it matters. So why do I want this anxiety to stop? If this anxiety stopped, what would I achieve? Right? So that's the thing, that what matters. That's what anxiety is preventing you from doing. And focusing on that and saying, okay, so getting that would mean that I will have to put up with some amount of anxiety. So to give you an example of the dog earlier, I need to meet my girlfriend, but she's got a dog here. Every time I need to meet her, I need to pass this dog, or I need to learn how to be comfortable around a dog because my girlfriend really loves dogs and I really want to be with my girlfriend. So I'm going to have to learn to put up with some amount of anxiety around the dog. So then just practicing breaking up that big thing into smaller chunks. So what you call an exposure hierarchy, right? So writing down what is this hierarchy. So if I just hear the word dog, I get anxious. And maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is extremely anxious and 1 is nothing at all, I may have, say, 2. And if I see a picture of a dog, I may have 4. So building up all the way like this until, what is the most anxious, and then putting yourself to, face that anxiety. And as you said, how to do that, there are a whole ton of things, that you can find online about grounding exercises, about behavioral strategies, other behavioral strategies. So I won't get into that, but I would like to highlight one thing that definitely worsens anxiety is saying that I will expose myself to this until I'm anxious, right? So you're giving yourself an option to cop out as soon as you begin that discomfort. Instead, you have to say that I will be in this situation until I feel my anxiety reducing in half. You remember the earlier thing I said about how our brain gets the message that by avoiding the situation, that's what caused my anxiety to drop. So we need to break that cycle within our brain, that learning. And the way to do that is to be in the anxiety-provoking situation, doing the breathing exercises, and allowing ourselves to feel a decrease in the intensity of the anxiety. And that's slowly over time going to teach us that we can get this under our control, and it's all right. I'm not going to die or experience the kind of catastrophe that I'm imagining. And so that's, I think, one of the key things to remember while doing all of this. Don't give yourself the option that I will expose myself until I'm anxious. The minute I'm anxious, I will run away. Right? That's going to keep the anxiety cycle perpetuating.
Yeah, that's a loop. Absolutely. What you mentioned here is a term that you mentioned earlier as well, which is cognitive restructuring, right? You're restructuring how you perceive something and how you react to it and everything in between. I must tell you, out of experience, that has been the game changer for me. the person that I am today, I've been able to fundamentally change the way I look at threat or any situation and change the way I respond to it. That's changed everything for me. But it's involved a lot of work over a long period of time. I've gone from becoming a person who had complex emotions that were intersecting at various points. I had various standpoints about various things to now simplifying things, saying these are the three tiers, these emotions are good for me, these are not. When they come, I deal with them this way. That's it. But that's a lot of work. And I am somebody who likes to put in the work. For people who do not or can't put in that work, if they feel like they can't put in that work, what is the one point they should look for where they can turn the knob and at least make an attempt to change the way they think, the way they perceive, and the way they react?
Sure. So again, when something seems too large to achieve, it's always a good idea to break it down into smaller chunks. So one way people have, experts in the field have suggested, is just to have a diary of one scary thing I'll do every day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be related to your anxiety. It can just be a new challenge that you would like to give yourself each day. For example, simple things like I typically get tired after climbing 3 flights of stairs. Today, I'll push myself to climb 4 and I'll see how that feels like, right? So just really tiny, achievable, manageable challenges to just push your boundaries beyond your comfort zone. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, as I said, related to your anxiety-provoking situation.
Wonderful. So it's not, when you talk about challenges, it does not mean climbing walls, doing dangerous things. Folks, please ensure that you don't do that. These are
not
small.
At all. It could be simple things like I'm used to studying half an hour, after which I need a break. I absolutely must have a break, otherwise I cannot keep studying. So saying like, okay, I'm going to go 35 minutes today and nothing, like I'm going to deal with whatever comes.
So these are essentially everyday things that you do in your day to day that could tip you off a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, in a sense, it's challenging these rules that you've built for yourself, because that has a lot to do with anxiety, right? People who have a lot of these rules and are not very flexible tend to feel more discomfort in the event that those rules are broken. And so really pushing those rules slightly a little more inch by inch every day to say that it's all right, it's not the end of the world if this doesn't happen the way I'd like it. So simple things like I like my tea a certain degree hot, otherwise it's useless. Right? So just learning to drink tea maybe slightly less hotter than your usual and knowing that it's not the end of the world. And that's a bit of flexibility, bringing in some, training your mind to have some psychological flexibility. And it's a good thing to learn how to deal with when things don't go your way, learning to break these rules. Good for yourself as well as helpful for relationships as well.
The rules you make for yourself and learning to work with them